Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Homecoming 2020. Certainly a different experience than homecomings in the past, and we're really grateful to have the opportunity to connect with everybody. Certainly, we would love to be in person with you, and we wish we had the chance to mingle a little bit and talk, but the current circumstances have sort of forced us into this space, but we really appreciate your time. We're great to connect with you today. Of course, we've had a whole series of events across the whole weekend from Cal Athletics that we're bringing to you, and we appreciate all that you're doing to continue to engage with us, to support our coaches, staff, and student athletes, and we hope you enjoyed today's presentation. As the pandemic has done to all of us, it's turned things upside down, and you know, we've joked about this before, but if we had done this a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the topic would be very different. But of course, we've had some great news as of late that we're returning several of our programs back to the path to playing and the path to competition. We wanted to give you a little bit of insight about how that's happening today. You're going to hear from our director of athletics from his perspective. You're going to hear from one of our head coaches, and of course from some of our medical staff as well, about how they're all working together to try to bring our student athletes back to campus in a safe and healthy way. Part of what we're doing this year is to create a campaign, the roll-on campaign, to make sure that we move through. And that campaign is focused on three things. It's focused on people, programs, and prevention. The people, of course, is focused on our coaches and staff, but primarily our student athletes. Our programs, we're doing everything we can to put things into place to bring back every one of our sports, either now or after January 1st to competition. And prevention, that we're certainly very focused on the health and safety of those people who are back on campus and that are planning to return to competition soon. So we're thrilled to have you here, and we appreciate your time. So I'm going to start with our Director of Athletics, Jim Knowlton. Jim's in his third year here at Cal, following stints at both the Air Force Academy and RPI in similar roles. He's been doing an incredible job leading us through this time. He's a former student athlete himself, having played hockey at West Point before embarking on a career in the military, and we're incredibly lucky to have him here. So, Jim, I'm going to start with you. You know, as I said, every time we do one of these, the topic and the questions change dramatically, but I want to look back just a little bit with you first. You know, we were in August. We had announced our schedules for football. The Big Ten cancels, we cancel fall competition, the world changes, and of course, we've now decided to move forward. So what changed, and how did we get to the decision now to return to competition?
Well, Brian, first off, it's great to see everybody, and thanks for joining us. I hope you and your families are safe and healthy, and this is what we found is the best way right now that we can continue to stay connected, and so we appreciate you for joining us. You know, we made the decision in early August to postpone fall sports, primarily because of the spread of the virus in the areas where Pac-12 schools were, the lack of testing and the lack of the ability to get test results quickly, and then some of the concerns over myocarditis. And, you know, our medical experts with the Pac-12 and also on campus recommended this, and our chancellors and presidents, made this hard decision. And it was a hard decision because the student athletes wanted to play, and we just didn't feel like we could do it in a safe manner. And so fast forward 6 to 8 weeks, and all of a sudden, all of the areas, the spread of the virus is down, and in our area, it's well below 1% on campus, and now we have daily testing available with results in 15 minutes. So that's antigen testing that's supplemented by PCR testing, and then we've learned a lot more about myocarditis. It was not as severe or as widespread as originally thought by the first research project. And so chancellors and presidents came back together. They looked at all of the information that our medical experts gave us, and then made the decision that we, in fact, could return to play if we did it with a very, very safe protocol, daily testing, and many other pieces that have been put in place by our medical staff to make sure the safety and ensure the safety of our student athletes. And so with that, we've got a really neat plan. We've really done a comprehensive look at how we keep them safe with everything being outside for the most part. And so I'm really proud of the way the staff has come together to make this journey possible as we move forward to football, the 2 basketballs, men's and women's swimming and diving, and our 2 gymnastics programs to start, and then we'll continue to build from there.
Great. Thank you, Jim. I want to turn next to Ryan Cobb. Ryan's a graduate of Vanderbilt University and has been the head athletics trainer at Cal since 2003. He's the Senior Associate AD of Performance Health and Welfare, and it would take too long for me to list all the ways he's connected across campus to make sure Cal Athletics is a valuable part of everything we do here at UC Berkeley. So Ryan, we've alluded to it, but of course things continue to change every single day. And of course, the student athlete health and safety is at the very core of everything that we're doing right now. So how have you been navigating these constantly changing guidelines and partnering with Berkeley Public Health and campus to get us to this point?
Yeah, Brian, thanks so much. Thanks for letting me share some today. Such an honor and privilege to get to take care of the student athletes here at UC Berkeley and to get to be a part of what is an amazing group of faculty and staff, some of whom we've partnered with in these projects, many of whom, to be honest. So, since the time athletic activity was suspended in the spring, we've been working and planning, with the campus, the local, state, and even national public health experts. In addition to having the finest college health center, I think, on any campus in the nation, we've also got public health experts from each of our 12 campuses who were kind of immediately enlisted to become a part of the return plans. Cal's own John Schwartzberg, who we've referenced a lot through this process as a public health and infectious disease expert, who we recruited and was the first expert that joined the Pac-12 advisory committee on COVID. He's been with us pretty much every step of the way in every way you can imagine, weekly, sometimes daily consultation as we built plans. The group in the Pac-12 continues to meet weekly or more. And again, John has been a huge part of that, along with Lindsey Houston and me, along with reps from every school. And that group is planning every aspect that they can possibly think of here, from prevention, how to do a team meal, how to travel. Even we've spent time, how do you deliver water to a team? I mean, things that we've not had to think about in a long time, we've had to plan out. So in addition to that, we've got folks like Art Reingold on this campus in the School of Public Health, who's not only doing a study, but has consulted with us about all of our processes and how we can do this well. As Jim has mentioned in the past, the Chancellor put together the Recovery Management Committee and specifically a Public Health and Testing Committee, who we've leaned on and has driven policy on this campus about return, not only for student athletes, but for students. We've submitted hundreds of pages of plans at this point to the RMT and to Berkeley Public Health. And we've been fortunate in that the plans have been accepted, and we've been able to make stepwise increases as the city and county transmission rates have gone down. And we've even spent time working with the governor's office and partnering with the state of Oregon to make sure that we're doing in lockstep with some of our other partners in the Pac-12. But ultimately, to be clear, Berkeley Public Health is the decision maker, the final word. We've had some great partnerships with Dr. Guy Nicolette and Anna Hart from the University Health Services, who help us manage the relationship with Berkeley Public Health and have helped us take each of those steps in concert with the campus. But our medical staff, performance staff, nutrition, equipment staff, facilities staff, they've mapped out every building. There's arrows on the ground. There's where do I pick up my meal and where do I drop off my laundry? And no lack of engagement from literally hundreds of staff in the athletic department who are working sometimes well outside of their normal day-to-day, and just couldn't be more of a team effort and couldn't be prouder to be a part of both the athletics team and the campus teams as we're executing these plans.
Great. Thanks for that insight, Ryan. I appreciate it. It's my great pleasure to welcome our last guest today. So Sharman Smith is the head coach of our women's basketball program. She's heading into her second season in that role, following a stint in the WNBA. And of course, prior to that, she spent 12 years here as an assistant in Berkeley. She's a terrific student athlete in her own right. She played basketball at Stanford, where she earned both a bachelor's and a master's degree in civil and environmental engineering. And if anybody's been paying attention, you've seen all the noise she's made in recruiting during her short stint as head coach. So we're really excited to have her here. So Coach, it's not really a secret that being a head coach at a Power 5 institution means that you are doing a myriad of things. Of course, we see what happens on the court, but what you're asked to do expands well beyond that. You add to the pandemic and it's added even more challenges to you. So with all the uncertainty and what's happened in the spring towards the beginning of the pandemic all the way through the summer now as you return to campus, How have you been able to navigate that as a head coach? And what can you tell us about how you've been working with your team during that time and keeping them engaged to get us where we are today?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Appreciate you guys having me. And it has been interesting, navigating these times. And we were a young team last year who started to figure it out, come March, and knocked off 2 top 20 teams in the month of March. And we felt like we had some momentum building that we could, really look to heading into the off season. And then this hit. And so it's frustrating that, our student athletes haven't been able to be in the gym the way that we'd want them to. But I think we did a great job of keeping people connected and engaged through Zoom, from having people come in and speak to us, from, Roz Goldamure, Cam Jordan, Sue Bird. We just tried to keep them excited, keep smiles on their faces, and keep everyone connected, and knowing that we can only do what we can, during this time. And then you add on, the murders of unarmed Black people in our society that was happening with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and all of that. And it really impacted our Cal family as well. And I'm really proud of how our team has used their voice and responded to those instances during this time, and decided that they're going to be a part of the change. And with COVID going on, there's a lot of time, to decide what it is that you stand for and what type of impact you want to have. And I think our team has taken advantage of this time and done a lot of special things that hopefully, this group has heard about. And moving forward, now that we're slowly getting back on the court and shifting that focus to the return to play, I'm sure we'll have as much energy and passion with that as well.
Great. So you said it there at the end with the return to play, and you've got your student athletes back on campus now, Coach. So what can you tell us about that? How's practice going? How are they doing? I mean, they're on the court, but meetings are virtual, classes are virtual. It's sort of a crazy world. What can you tell us about their experience right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it or lie about it. It's not the experience that some other programs are having in other parts of the country, and I think, some of us on the call have been in situations where this experience is frustrating and we don't understand a lot of it, to be honest, right? But we do know, what we do know here at Berkeley is that we trust our leadership and we know that people are trying to keep us safe. And that's the most important thing. And so, we follow the guidelines and we do what we can. I'm still waiting to have everyone at 100% and in practice due to COVID protocols. That's just what happens. You got to get here, you got to sequester, you got to do this, that, and the other. But I will tell you, what was supposed to be the first official day of practice yesterday was extremely exciting. And this group is extremely talented. And the way that, I've explained it in calls and such, is like, when you want to make this really, really special pot roast, right? Like, you buy the really expensive meat that, is low in fat and all of that, and you get your vegetables or whatever. I've never cooked a pot roast, but in watching, I think this is what and you put all this stuff in the pot, and like, it's supposed to sit there and cook for a long time, right? And just like all marinate together, and then the meat starts kind of like falling off the bone and that type of stuff. I'm guessing, we've got all the special ingredients for an amazing pot roast, and my job, I guess, is to try to turn it into an Instapot instead of a slow cooking thing. And I'm trying my best to do that. But I'm happy that we have the right ingredients, at least.
So, Coach, very quickly, do I have it right that you have this incredibly popular social media thing that you do on Saturdays, Chillin' with Charmin? Is that the right title of it?
That is the right title, and I want it to be incredibly popular.
So maybe next time it's Cooking with Charmin. Is that what we're going to do next time here to build up for that?
Right.
That's great.
Someone teach me how to make a pot roast.
Well, terrific analogy. I appreciate that, and or metaphor, I suppose. But Ryan, let's turn to you. She talked about the student athletes coming back safely. And certainly that falls right underneath your umbrella of all the work that you're doing. And, you know, we've heard a lot over the last couple of weeks about our daily antigen testing, about the way that we're keeping our student athlete staff. Can you tell us more about that technology and what the process looks like for players and staff who are on campus and getting ready to compete?
Yeah, sure. You know, I'd say one of the things our students and staff are getting very used to is nasal swabs. I didn't say they liked it. I said they're getting used to it. You know, the antigen testing we're doing through a company named Quidel, and it's relatively simple, I think, from the perspective of our students and staff from what they end up seeing. And that's great because we're asking an awful lot of our students these days, from schedules to, you know, masks, and I mean, you name it. We're asking more of students than we've ever asked. I will say, in a lot of years of being at Cal, there's not a group I feel better about asking a lot of. They rise to the occasion. And thank goodness for that. But for our students, they arrive every day, they complete a screening tool, they do their temperature check, and they get a nice wristband, a different color every day, which tells us that they've been through the screening process. They show up in an outdoor area that we have both set up at Simpson and at the Haas Pavilion. And basically, they do the same type of collection that they do when they do their PCR test. It's set up in stations. It's very quick. They roll through that and then hopefully get back to studying and whatever they need to take care of in pre-practice. But the students basically from there they're done with that process. What happens back of house is that there are a lot of technology used on barcodes and the like on their sample bags. Those bags get taken to an area where we have the Quidel equipment, and the behind the scenes work really starts there. And there's somebody down here 8 to 10 hours a day doing everything from creating barcode stickers to bags with the swabs in them to ensuring that the tests are checked in and resulted properly. And to process these in a timely fashion, there's a lot of prep work that goes on in the lab before those samples show up so that we can do these things relatively quickly. And then on the back end, those results have to get uploaded to the campus so that the campus has their health records updated, and also to the state of California, which requires us to submit those. But on the good end, it's 10 or 15 people a day that are involved in the processing and collections of those tests. And that's where the athletic department staff has just been fantastic stepping in. The Quidel units themselves are actually kind of smaller than a shoebox. And really, at its most basic, it involves us taking the swab that came out of somebody's nose, sticking it in a test tube. It sits there for about a minute with some reagent in it. Then the liquid in that test tube is transferred to a cassette. And the cassette's no bigger than your finger. Basically, the liquid's dropped into that cassette. It sits for about 15 minutes, or exactly 15 minutes. And at that point, it can go into the Quidel unit itself. And I think one of our staff described it for the New York Times as an easy bake oven. And it's literally, you just open the tray, drop the cassette in, push it in, and the machine spits out a result in about 15 seconds. The devil, of course, is in the details of having the lab and the areas set up correctly, making sure that everything is done very precisely and that the samples are traced to the right person. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make it happen, but hopefully for our student athletes, what they see is a simple process. And we are committed, of course, to making sure it's also a high quality process that allows us to get a result. And if we do have a positive test, to be able to act on that almost immediately after that 15-second timer goes off.
So for those of you keeping track at home now, we have talked about pot roast, Instapot, and now easy bake ovens. So I'm guessing this group skipped lunch before we put this together. But anyway, Jim, let's turn to you for a minute. You know, Coach Smith has talked about the staff and student athletes. Ryan talked a little bit about the process, but you've spent a little bit of time on campus. You've gone through these some of these protocols. And so, you know, what can you tell us about the shift that you work and what it's like to be in your shoes as you head back to campus now?
Well, Brian, I really appreciate all that Ryan and Sharman have shared. And, you know, as you alluded to, lots of different people are pulling shifts to support this operation, which has become a lot more complex now than what it used to be. And so I was lucky enough to be the temperature tester this week as our football team came into Memorial Stadium. And couldn't be prouder of the way that Ryan and his team have set up the operation, you know, from an efficiency standpoint. It's really neat. And for me, it was great because I got to talk to every student athlete as they came through and just checked on how they're doing, how's morale. And and they're excited. They're excited to be back. They're excited to have the ability to see their teammates and get out and practice. And so, yeah, it's an exciting time. I'm cautiously optimistic because I've been watching what's happening around the country, and certainly know that if we don't stay attentive and stay vigilant and stay disciplined, even if we do that, we can have setbacks. And so, I reminded everyone that we're really counting on them and trusting them to be doing the right things, not only while they're with us, but when they're away from practice and away from the coaches. And so, yeah, it's an exciting time, but I'm still very, very cautiously optimistic as we look to the future.
Great. Thank you. So Coach Smith, I'd like to turn back to you for a moment, right? So we spent a lot of time looking backwards, talking about protocols, health and safety, all incredibly important stuff. But how about some excitement? How about let's talk about the season and how are you feeling about your team? And just announced yesterday that the Pac-12 is going to play a 22-game conference schedule, which is great news. So what can you tell us about the season, how you're feeling about it, and what we should be looking for?
Well, the first thing I can tell you is that we're going to be playing Stanford the weekend of December 12th and 13th. So that's like a month sooner than we usually play our rival school. So that's on my mind. But, we're going to get ready with a shorter preseason, with less practice. Like, we've got a very energetic and excited group, and we're very young, 6 freshmen, 4 sophomores, 1 junior, 1 senior. It's an extremely young group, and we're having a ton of fun together. Our first non-conference game will be November 25th, and we'll have 2 other non-conference games before we go into that 22 game slate of Pac-12 play. As we know, Pac-12, is arguably the toughest conference in the country, and we're up to the challenge and ready to compete and show how much we've improved.
Great. Well, thank you. I'll turn to Jim with one last question here before we wrap it up and let everybody get back to the myriad of homecoming events that are being offered this weekend. So, Jim, we've talked about the "it takes a village" concept, and certainly that reaches well beyond Cal Athletics. Ryan talked a little bit about campus and about Berkeley Public Health, but I know that you've been working really closely with some of our partners and the leadership on campus, and I wondered if you just wanted to talk a little bit about that before we go.
Sure, Brian, thanks. And I would say I have been just so blessed to be working on the Chancellor's Cabinet during these challenging times. Her leadership and partnership has been incredible for this university, and the challenges that she's facing every day are as complex as any challenges I've ever seen in my career. And so to watch her handle those, to guide us, to give us kind of the environment that she expects, and to see the collaboration on the cabinet has been really, really, it's been incredible, and it's really been positive in so many ways. And so we're really lucky. I think it's helped us as we've navigated this. And, as we've talked about athletics coming back, it wasn't, hey, we're going to bring athletics back. She talks about it in the context of, we brought back 25% density for our research, and we brought back 2,000 students in our dorms, and now we're bringing back 200 or so student athletes to begin the process of opening up the campus in a very disciplined way. And she said, we're watching each of those enterprises and how they do, and learning lessons that are going to help us continue to move forward with bringing back in-person classes, more research density, and many other aspects of a campus with 42,000 students. So I'm very appreciative, and I think her leadership has made a huge difference in how we've navigated this challenging time for the University of California, Berkeley.
Great. Well, thank you, Jim. And I appreciate, we've had some comments come directly to me during this time. We appreciate everybody who's been engaged, and certainly for those of you who are interested in helping, now's the time. That we have this roll-on campaign we've created in order to raise as much money as we can directly support our student athletes and make sure that we're able to provide them with the testing, with the sanitation, with the staffing needs and equipment and nutrition to make sure that they're back safe, they're back healthy, and that they're returning to competition with Cal across the front of their shirt. So the roll-on campaign's available. We'll drop some information here. Please visit, learn more about the effort. And if you're able to make a gift to support any one of our sports, it'd mean the world to us. So thank you to Coach Smith for your time, Ryan Cobb and Jim Knowlton. We appreciate it. We hope everybody's having a great homecoming in 2020. We look forward to seeing you in person again very soon. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.